Hey everyone, James here. We're about to drop an ALG defense, ALG AK Trigger into a MAK 90. Alright, we're about to disassemble the trigger group. Make sure your the hammer is forward. And you could take some needle nose pliers or anything, and you're going to grab these little guys up, and you're going to set them behind these. Behind the hammer, little ears on it that the trigger grabs. You get the other one a little tight. There we go. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but do that. And we just cross them like that. And these guys have a lot of spring tension, so they will cut your fingers if they let go. So I like to use a little twist tie, and that holds them in place. Sometimes it's a little scary putting it on there. If you ever had one of these whap your hand, it doesn't feel all that good, but it's no biggie. You just lift the safety lever, and it should come right out. That releases your shepherd's crook, which then in turn releases these pins. Yeah, move this one, it's kind of tight. There we go. And that releases the trigger. The safety catch out of the way, that releases tension on the shepherd's crook. So you can basically just pull this pin out. Then we have the hammer. Just twist the guy, and it pops right out, and it's still tied together, so it's not going to come undone. It's not going to hurt anybody. And here is your shepherd's crook. We're actually going to be replacing that guy with one of these guys, which work much, much better. So now we're going to untwist the twist tie. I had to redo mine because it came undone. See how that's why we had the twisty tie on there. Damn. And this guy just comes off like that. Here's the old MAK 90 hammer. Here's the new AKT trigger hammer. Make sure this little stirrup thing goes on this guy right here, just like this. And push it on. Goes like that. And we're going to, again, move our little spring dealies like this. And once we put the other one up too, we are going to grab a twisty tie and tie them on there so we don't hurt our fingers. This AKT trigger is going to be somewhat difficult to install. We have a different spring right here, and so we're going to have to orient it in the gun with this guy going like that. We not drop it here, just like that. That's how it gets put in the gun. So first step, we're going to put the hammer in. We're going to wiggle it in there, and we're going to twist it. And it goes just like that. Then we're going to take one of our trigger group pins, slide it through the hole. And we're going to have to orient it so it comes through the other side, which can sometimes be a little difficult, and there we go. Now our hammer is installed, and we're going to leave this twisty tie on here so it does not hit our hands while we're working. The next step is to drop in the trigger and the sear. And so we're going to orient them like so. These can be a pain to install sometimes, especially without a slave pin. Orient your spring in the hole. The guy can be kind of difficult to compress because that sear spring is pretty strong. We're going to install our trigger pin through the AKT trigger, and then we're going to orient the sear so it gets installed through the sear as well. The cool thing about the Tapco triggers is they actually have a handy dandy little holder, so you don't have to worry about this thing. Going to drop our little spring in here, kind of like that. Then we're going to use a slave pin to orient it properly, and then we're going to tap our trigger pin all the way through. Now that we managed to swivel this turbo trigger pin between the trigger, the sear, and this little doohickey right here, a little spring guy, we're now going to undo our twist tie. Getting careful not to hit your fingers with these things as it's spring loaded like a mother. And we right up there. See how the spring rests right there on top of the trigger? What's cool about the original AK trigger design is that or any AK trigger, just this one's a little more complicated because the extra or backup spring, is that the hammer spring also acts as the trigger spring. So make sure it works. Yep, guy works. So this is the safety lever. A lot of AKs, this is just a straight piece of metal. On the MAK 90, they did have this relief cut, but it wasn't deep enough. And this relief cut allows it to go to clear that. And the only part of the safety that works is this part right here that contacts this, and that prevents the trigger from being raised. And if you see where the clearance is once I install it, see how it just clears that? It just clears the sear. See that surface? That's why we have that cutout. And this AK did not have that cutout deep enough. So we're about to install the trigger retaining plate. Your pins have these two little notches on them that your shepherd's crook right here actually there's an interference fit, so you can't push the pins out like I can here. So we're going to install this guy, and it's kind of a bitch to get in there, but we're gonna slip it under this spring. If we can get it out of the way, push it down. So then we just push the lever down. Now our AKT trigger is installed, and the trigger retaining plate, blocks the pins from backing out.